Okay.
Great. Okay. So good evening, everybody, and a warm welcome from Bombay and a little cold from Oxford uh, to Dr. Shailendra Bhandare. He's an old friend of mine, and I'm really happy that he's accepted our invitation to address today. Usually, Sprouts conducts these lecture series. Sprouts Environment Trust has been doing this for the last 7 years. This is the penultimate lecture of this seventh year. And next time, I'd like to already introduce the topic that we have Dr. Anita Verghese, who's going to be talking about barefoot ecology, where tribals in Kerala have been documenting the biodiversity of that area. That's on 11th of December. We'll be sending you out details of that. But to give you a little brief history about this lecture series, earlier it used to be in its physical form. We used to hold it at Maharashtra Nature Park in Mahim in Bombay. Later on at Rishi Valmiki Eco School, which is a government school running on a nature and environment theme. And now since February, we were in lockdown, and it became a fantastic opportunity for us to invite all these amazing speakers from all over the world and get them virtually. Not only are our speakers virtual now, we have a lot of listeners also joining in. So we've had about 17, 18 participants from 70 to 18 countries who managed to join in on our lecture series. Last lecture was by again a person who was from science, Dr. Devdutt Patnaik, and who talked about animals in mythology. And again, this time I would like to say that Dr. Shailendra Bhandare also is trained in pharmacy. He did his bachelor's in pharmacy, and then he went ahead and did his master's in history and his PhD in Indian studies, right? Uh, so you'll see that it's not necessary, that for people to say that, oh, once you are into science, you have to always, you can jump, and one field and the other field, they do merge together. But currently, Dr. Bhandare is a curator of the South Asian and Far East coins and paper money, and also the assistant keeper of South Asian and Far Eastern numismatics and paper money collections, also, as well as a fellow of St. Cross College and a faculty member of Oriental Studies. Uh, he started his career as a numismatist with a visiting fellowship at the Fitzwilliam Museum, University of Cambridge, and then he was appointed as a postdoctoral fellow of the Society of South Asian Studies and worked as a curator in the British Museum on coins of later Mughals and Indian princely states. He was appointed as a curator of coins in the Ashmolean Museum in 2002. So today he's going to be talking to us about natural infusions into our coinages, and his expertise lies in the period of the 500 BC to present day era, and more so in the ancient Indian region. From his specialization is basically 500 BC to 500 AD, but he's also interested in pre-modern era, that is the 1500 AD to 1900 AD. And he's also currently studying, trying to contextualize the copper coins uh, and looking at the economic, social, political, and religious histories in the pre-modern period. Besides also trying to understand the complicated historical processes like colonization and how monetary transactions of these coinages are they've been occurring in the historic period. Uh, I think I would the topic that he's going to be talking about is so interesting. We will be pasting a link of his biography so that you can follow him also on social media, as well as his works and publications that are there. And if there are any questions, please type them in the chat box. We usually take them at the end of the presentation. But if I'll be curating and moderating them. But in case I feel that while he's talking, if there is something it's like relevant to that point, or somebody wants you to elaborate on something, is that okay if I can? No, you prefer it later? Okay, so we'll take it at the end then. Great. So thank you so much, and without much ado, up to you, Dr. Bhandare.
Thanks, Anand, and thank you for Sprout Environment Trust to have invited me. It's been a great pleasure, and very happy to do things to help Anand in his manifold activities. What I'm going to do, as usual, I mean, I've done so many talks on these platforms nowadays, that I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to go away and just talk to my slides. And in case, the only request that I have to make is that please don't disturb by interjections or anything of that sort, because I have nothing here on my table that I'm going to talk to my slides, so I need a bit of a concentration when I'm doing these talks. So share screen, and then I shall vanish for the time being. There we go. As Anand explained, this is going to be a kind of an exposition on how this is, how animals particularly come and are displayed through money. And I decided to title it Beauty of the Beasts, which is a kind of an alliteration on the famous story of Beauty and the Beast, as it were. So coins have largely been present on money for a long, long time. And there is a long history of animal depictions in the numismatic tradition. And these are a few examples of how beautifully they have been depicted in the rest of the world, apart from outside the Indian subcontinent. And even the earliest of the coins, and the very early coins, the first coins rather in the world, were struck in what was called as Asia Minor, and what is now called as Turkey, in about 650 BC. And even on these very early coins, there's a depiction of a lion that you see here on the top left. So coins have monetary forms, and coins have always been associated with coins, with different animals. They have different contexts. We probably think that on the Lydian coin that you see here on the top left, the earliest coin that I mentioned, the lion's face was a symbol of local political authority at that place. And that's how it was sort of stamped to indicate that these were proper, genuine monetary objects issued under that particular political authority. On the top right here, you see a fantastic depiction of a horse. And this is a coin from the northern African city of Carthage, which was a Phoenician city. It was ruled by the Phoenicians. And there again, the horse had a particular cultural significance for the Phoenicians. The lower two coins, the animals are shown in slightly different contexts. The lower left coin is celebrating the Roman victory over Egypt. And what you see here is the Nile crocodile. So this is where coins, the animals start getting symbolically associated with the money. So this is where the inscription on the coin says Aegypto capta, the capture of Egypt. And then there is a crocodile in between. And that's kind of a significance to show that the Romans had extended their authority over the Nile. Similarly, there are sometimes stories associated with animals, and mythical stories particularly. And the coin on the bottom right shows the famous story of the foundation of Rome, which was founded by these two twins, Romulus and Remus. And they were supposedly brought up by a she-wolf. And this is what the coin, the Rome city coin shows. On one side, there is the picture of the goddess of Rome, but on the other side, you can see that there is a she-wolf, and these two little babies are suckling onto her. So these are sort of various depictions, the various kind of traditions that one sees coins in. And of course, they have been part on modern money. These are examples of money particularly from the Indian subcontinent, where animals have, by and large, I mean, these are very familiar kind of coins that we have always used, or banknotes even. This 10 rupee banknote must be very familiar to you all. And it had these three interesting sort of symbolic animals of India: the tiger, the elephant, and the rhino. Similarly, the Pakistani coin that you see, it's a special issue of 3,000 rupees gold coin from Pakistan, and that shows the mountain ibex on its reverse. The 25 paisa with the rhino was a very commonplace Indian coin design that a lot of you might remember actually using. And so these are, and here on the Bangladeshi 50 paisa coin, you can see there's a dove. So these again have various significances. And in modern times, these animals have sort of been used as to portray particular messages or particular identities across these monies. So when we look at animals and coins, we could sort of discern some aspects of their study, as in what exactly do they tell us. So first of all, as I said, animals on money appear as symbols. And this is what the subject that anthropologists particularly call the semiotics of money. So, you know, the role of symbolism on money is a very significant branch of anthropological study. But there are other things. There is design, there is associative kind of context and connections. There is a message which kind of links with the role of animals as symbols. Then, of course, there is the art of actually depicting an animal. As we saw, that horse on the Carthaginian coin was absolutely beautiful. So there is this particular aspect of engraving and technique that is involved in producing these coins. Animals are sort of deployed on money to achieve a wide range of functions. And as throughout the presentation, I shall tell you something about what sort of functions these are. And they are always shown in varying contexts. Religion and ritual is one of them. Concepts and conceits is another. And of course, in modern times, and of course, as proud members, you would be most interested in knowing is conservation and ecology. Of course, they also are associated with animals on coins. And what is very interesting here is that there is, if you see in a historical perspective as well as modern practice, one sees that there is a kind of vocabulary that emerges through money. So the coins actually speak to us through money. The animals, sorry, actually speak to us through money, and they have particular symbols, particular contexts, and particular messages to tell us. So here, through these animal depictions, we can read the money almost like a book. So which is the most interesting aspect of it. And this is where it sort of connects it to the wider historical, anthropological, sociological, all these other narratives that one can create about studying animal depictions on coins. The most significant aspect of animals which are seen on coins is the associative aspects. And the most common association, there are lots of other associations, but I thought I would just focus on the association with divinities. Now, this is something, you know, people from Indian cultural background are very, very familiar about, that animals are usually associated with gods and goddesses. And they are, you know, they come as their vehicles or some sort of mythological associations. For example, everybody knows that the mouse is a vehicle of Ganesha, or the snake is associated with Garuda. Both animals kind of, you know, in sort of engaged in an interesting religious mythological context with each other. And just a few examples of how these can be seen, not just in an Indian perspective, but also from wider perspective, from areas and spaces which were culturally connected to India and have had a wide ranging influence on Indian socio-cultural dimensions, as it were. So on top left here, you see a coin of Alexander the Great. And on the reverse, there is the greatest of the Greek gods, Zeus. And you see him seated on the throne, but in his hand is an eagle. And this is a particular form of Zeus, which is called Zeus Etiophoros. And this is the Greek name for Zeus carrying the eagle in his hand. This is a particular association showing that this is the Zeus at Olympia. So this is no other. No, so this particular shrine at Olympia for Zeus was where it was associated. He was associated with this eagle. On the top right, you see a gold coin of the Kushan king Kanishka, who ruled between 127 and 150 AD. So sort of early to mid 2nd century AD. And here again, you see a very lesser known god from the Iranian tradition, and his name was Luruaspa. And he was in his role, he was the guardian of the health of animals, and therefore he's been shown on this coin, particularly with against the backdrop of a horse. Horse was the most important beast for peoples like the Kushans, who were Central Asian nomadic people. So horse carried a great importance in their cultural and religious sphere, as it were. So this is the reason why the deity that was the guardian of the health of animals is associated, shown associated with horse. The Indian examples, which will be pretty common to, pretty well known to most of you, is the association of animals to gods and goddesses, as particularly as vehicles. And the bottom left coin here, a gold coin, shows Shiva seated on his Nandi, which is a very, very everyday commonplace example of an animal associated with a god. And on the reverse is the depiction of the goddess Abhisheka Lakshmi, the Lakshmi which is seated on a lotus, and then she's been anointed or lustrated by two elephants who also stand on lotuses. So this is again a very standard depiction from the Indic tradition. Interestingly, there are some sort of multiple, like, mixed or fused depictions of such goddesses as well. And that you see on the lower right coin, which is a coin from the kingdom of Tripura in northeastern India. And here, King Vijayamanikya is showing a composite icon, a composite deity, which is the Ardhanarishwara. So he's half Durga and half Shiva. And in that kind of recognition, this particular motif here, if you see carefully, is shown with two animals. There is the Shiva's bull and the Durga's lion. Both are shown sort of, in a sort of juxtaposition facing either way. And Durga, Ardhanarishwara, the half Shiva and half Durga form, is actually riding on both of these. You can see that the Durga side of the image has many arms, as Durga has 8 arms, and the Shiva side has only 2 arms, which is kind of a half of the Shiva's 4 arms. So it's a very interesting depiction of complexity bred into the way these animals are associated with these deities. The same kind of complexity, one says, is in also how animals are shown in connection. So, as you know, to carry on the story from the depiction of Ardhanarishwara, which has 2 animals associated with it, here are 2 depictions which are quite interesting. And they are interesting because they speak different languages. So, we talked initially about how vocabularies evolve out of money. So this is a very good example of that particular aspect of monetary history. Here on the top, you see a silver coin of the Indo-Greek ruler Antiochus, who ruled in northwestern parts of the Indian subcontinent around Taxila in 130 to 120 BC. And on the reverse of this coin, you see the Greek god Zeus again. And here, Zeus is carrying a little goddess Nike, the goddess of victory, in his hand. So he is not Zeus Aetioporos, like we saw on Alexander's coin just a moment ago. This is Zeus Nikephoros. So he carries the Nike in his hand. And he has, of course, the royal scepter, his Rajadanda in his hand. But against his person, there is a depiction of an elephant. And this is a very odd thing because there is no comparison. In Greek culture or Greek mythology, Zeus is not associated with an elephant. So what exactly is going on here? So this is where the vocabulary of talking to different audiences comes in play. And here, the area in which these coins were circulating was inhabited by a multicultural kind of milieu at that time. So there were people from different regions of Asia, really, and also further afield, which were inhabiting in this particular region, which was classically called as Gandhara. And for them, it was this kind of linking of the connections between Zeus and the elephant that was quite interesting, because it tells you that for the audience, which is not Greek, this is the depiction of The greatest god in Indian tradition is Indra, who is a kind of equivalent of Zeus in the Greek tradition. And it is Indra who is associated with the elephant. So from an Indian perspective, this is the depiction of Indra, not Zeus. So this is what makes it more interesting, because it is the same depiction that speaks different languages to different cultural consumers of this imagery, which is a very interesting sociological aspect, where the connections between the icon and the animal are seen very interestingly. Similarly, the lower coin is of another Kushan king, Vimacatphysis, who was the father of Kanishka, who we just saw. He ruled between 110 and 127 AD. And here again, you see on the reverse of this coin, there is Shiva reclining against Nandi, a very commonplace depiction. What is interesting here is the king, who is shown seated on the obverse, on the other side. If you see very carefully, look at his hand. In one of his hand, he's holding a scepter. And the other hand, which is his left hand, has its sleeve, which is of his coat, which is extended over the hand. There is no, you can't see his palm. The entire hand is covered. And this was a particular Zoroastrian practice, Iranian practice, because the left hand is considered to be a defiling hand for obvious reasons. It was not to be shown in divine company. So this is why it's been covered. And what the king is trying to show here is that because he's covering his left hand, by the covering of left hand, he's trying to show that he is actually in divine company. So this is the connection that he has with the icon on the reverse. So Shiva on the reverse is not just a side of the coin, it is connected with the depiction of the obverse through the covering of the hand. So here again, the iconic depiction and the animal that you see here that identifies the icon as Shiva is kind of interestingly connected with the depiction of the king on obverse. Not all Indian coins show such clear connections. I mean, what we saw was just perhaps an exception. A lot of ancient Indian coins, particularly from what historians regard as the early historic period, which sort of ends around 300 AD, have symbolically associated the animals with messages. One of the messages is of fertility. And a lot of aquatic animals are traditionally associated in this kind of cultural context with fertility. So on the top right, top left coin here, you see a frog. And this is again connected with the fertility aspect of its cultural significance. Similarly, on the coin on the top right, there is a symbol of a river. You can see that it's sort of two curvy lines. And within those two curvy lines are small aquatic creatures swimming around. And if you see carefully, you can see there are two fishes and two turtles. Fishes and turtles, again, being aquatic animals, are connected with fertility of rivers, and water is connected with fertility. So this all kind of, these kind of form a symbolic role around the concept of fertility. Sometimes they are shown as objects that were attributes of particular goddesses. So for example, on the top bottom coin here, you see there is a pair of fish, and that pair of fish is actually strung on a semicircular line. So they are not pair of live fish, but they're a pair of dead fish, really. They have been caught. And this was a particular symbol that was associated with river goddesses. So because the rivers, obviously fish live in the rivers and the fish can be eaten as food, the fish that were caught were shown as an attribute of early depictions of Indian river goddesses. And this is exactly what we see here. However, that is not the case throughout the ancient Indian period. Sometimes they also have different meanings. So for example, on later coins, such as this little gold coin of the Hoysalas from Karnataka, which is about 13th century, you see a turtle, but the context of the entire series of these coins, if you see, I mean, this is a single piece from a long series of coins. If you see it in the context of that series, you know that this is here, the turtle is shown as an avatar. So there are 10 different symbols on these coins, and the turtle comes up as one of the avatars. So again, as I said before, the symbols have, even animals used as symbols can have differing meanings and differing contexts. One particular aspect where a lot of animal imagery is associated in connection on Indian coins is the aspect of kingship. The king in India, in ancient India, was considered to be a divine person. He actually had an element of divinity in within his body, and as such, he was the purveyor, the holder of certain rights which only the king can hold. One of the rites was to perform sacrifices, and one of the most famous sacrifices associated with kingship in ancient India was Ashwamedha, or the famous horse sacrifice. And the horse, the sacrificial horse, is what you see here on the top left coin, which is a coin of Samudragupta, the famous Gupta ruler. And here you can see that there is the horse which is standing in front of a sacrificial pillar. And this was a kind of the ritual composition of the ceremony, that the horse was brought into the ceremonial hall. He was made to stand in front of the sacrificial pillar, which sort of marked the position and the beginning of the sacrifice by actually erecting this particular pillar, and then the horse was sacrificed in front of it. So this was a clear association with. And then it's the potency and the virility of the horse was then transferred ritualistically to the king himself. So the king actually became the kind of inheritor of the masculinity and the virility of the horse. Similarly, going around in processions was another kingly prerogative, and this is what you see on the top right coin here, which is a coin of Kumaragupta, which is another Gupta king, and all the three coins, I mean, the rest of the coins here are all of Kumaragupta. And here again, you see a really beautiful depiction of a king riding a processional elephant. The third prerogative of the king was to go on hunts, and this is what you see on the bottom right coin here. This is Kumaragupta riding a horse, and he has a bow in his hand, and he is departing on a hunt. And then there are several other coin sort of depictions of Kumaragupta shown actually hunting the beast. So there is a coin showing him hunting a lion. There's a coin showing him hunting the tiger, and also very rare coin I'll show you in a minute that shows him hunting a rhinoceros as well. So this is the kind of prerogatives, the hunting prerogatives that the king held. And lastly, another element of kingship was patronage. And this is again a very beautiful coin of Kumaragupta, which makes a very interesting visual pun on the name of the king. Kumara, of the name, his name, also was the name of Kartikeya, the son of Shiva. And this is what the coin is actually showing. On one side, there is Kartikeya, who was riding a peacock, which is a kind of royal, divine depiction. But on the front of the coin, you can see the king is standing, and he is actually patronizing a peacock. A peacock stands in front of him, and he's doing a gesture towards the peacock, which is sort of bringing him into his patronage. So he's actually petting the peacock in a way. So this is the kind of alliteration that the visual vocabulary of these coins is showing, that the king is not only an epitome, impersonation of God Kartikeya, but he is also a great patron of the bird that is associated so deeply with Kartikeya. So this is a beautiful depiction of animals that come in connection. There are mythical and anthropomorphic depictions of God, of animals on coins as well. And some of the most commonplace depictions in this particular category are the avatars that one sees in the Vaishnavite pantheon. So the boar incarnation, you can see here on the top left coin, Varaha, which is issued by the king Pratihara ruler Bhoja I, who ruled in mid-9th century. Varaha was also one of his titles. He also called himself Varaha. So again, in a sort of symbolic sense, he's depicting himself on the coin when he depicts the form, the Varaha incarnation. On the top right side, you see a coin issued by Krishnadevaraya, the king of Vijayanagara Empire, who was a very devout Vaishnava. So he shows the emblem of Garuda, who's kneeling on one of his knees and doing the gesture of salutation with his hands. So he's actually showing the Garuda as the servant of Vishnu. And here again, there is a kind of indication, a kind of suggestion that much like Garuda is the servant of Vishnu, even the king who struck the coin is also a kind of servant of Vishnu in this particular manner. And the bottom right coin is the depiction of the lion incarnation of Vishnu, Lakshmi, and Narasimha shown side by side. Again, a pun on the name of the king that struck this, because this coin was issued by the king of Mysore, whose name was Kanthirava Narasaraja. So Narasaraja is an indication of Narasimha, and this is what the coin depicts here. So it's again, very interesting connections of how the kings chose to depict these anthropomorphic animals to indicate their particular religious proclivities or even their nomenclature in a way. But this was not only limited to sort of the so-called Hindu depictions, but also sometimes you see them on Islamic coins. So this is a very nice gold coin of the last Nawab of Awadh, Wajid Ali Shah, ruled between 1847 and 1856. And his particular individual crest that you see on the coin is composed of mermaids. And that this is what it is depicted here. Mermaids had a particular connection in the Iranian cultures of being known as one of the fairies, or they were fairy creatures, and they had particular jolly kind of associations that were part of their understanding. So they are sort of brought in from the Iranian culture into Awadh in the kingdom of the Nawabs of Awadh, where they form part of the personal crest of Wajid Ali Shah, who, as many of us will know, was really a very jolly king in many interesting ways. The other particular aspect that coins have with regard to kingship and royalty is a lot of animals appear on coins as dynastic emblems. So these are what in Sanskrit were called lanchanas, and the lanchanas that appear on coins is a kind of speciality of many southern Indian dynasties. So for example, the Chalukyas who ruled in South India much of the latter half of the first millennium show a boar as their dynastic emblem. The dynastic emblem of the Cholas was composed of more than one animals, and this is a coin of Rajendra Chola, and you can see that the top half of the coin has a seated lion, the seated tiger. The tiger is seating in profile like a cat, and then there is a pair of fish next to him. So this was the dynastic emblem of the Cholas, and again the lion became so associated with royalty from time immemorial. You can see that he's on these coins of the Kadambas of Goa. You see a roaring lion, which was again a kind of dynastic emblem of the Kadambas, and even today it forms the logo of the Kadamba bus transport that runs in Goa. So it is the same lion that appears on these modern logos. A little a glimpse into how beautiful some of the coins some of the animals that coins depict can be shown is the example of the zodiacal coins that were struck by the Mughal Emperor Jahangir. And this is a very interesting subject in its own right. I will not go into great details over it, but in a nutshell, what happened is that around after about 10 or 15, 12 years of Jahangir's rule, he suddenly had this bright idea that Um, there was a practice in his coins that not only the date in which the year in which the coin was struck was mentioned on the coins, but also the month was mentioned. And these months were solar months, which were following an Iranian solar calendar. And so he had this bright idea that why not, instead of just naming the month, it's giving the name of the month, why not I show the sun sign that is associated with the month. So, and as you know, that there are many zodiacal signs which are derived from animals, and these are some of the examples. The only example that is lacking here is Cancer and Leo. And there is Aries, there is Taurus, there is Scorpio, and there is Pisces. Most wonderfully seen on these coins, and the art of the engraving of these coins is of a very high caliber. And you can see that the Aries, the ram, you can see its wool is shown in by very tiny details on his body. So it's a very highly skillful engraving of these coins. Is similarly, you can see this particular coin is not in that great condition, but if it is in good condition, if it is not worn, you can see the scales of the fishes. And sometimes you can even identify the species, because this pair of fishes that is seen here as the sign of Pisces are actually rohu fishes from the greatest river fish or sports fish that is available in Indian rivers is the rohu. And in Jahangir's autobiography, there are very interesting glimpses of how much he liked fishing as a sport. And then he also, there is this one wonderful story that he caught, one of his courtiers managed to catch a really magnificent fish in Malwa when he was camping near Mandu. And then when he was brought, the fish was so extraordinary that the person then decided to actually present it to the king. And then the king gave him lots of gifts and all that, the typical things that kings do when they are pleased. So there is a kind of direct connection between the rohu fish and episodes in Jahangir's life. And then the same fish then gets depicted as the sign of Pisces. So there is a very interesting context here. These sort of contexts that people have also ended up in the animal imagery that you see on these coins being interpreted in particular ways. So for example, the top coin here is a silver coin, and it is issued by a Greek king in Asia, in Central Asia, whose name was Demetrius, and he ruled between 200 and 185 BC, roughly. But if you see, he wears a very strange kind of helmet, and it's the elephant scalp which has been sort of made into a headgear. And in 19th century, when these coins were studied, this particular aspect of his headgear was construed, was interpreted to suggest that it was Demetrius who conquered India for the first time. And that particular reference of Demetrius as conqueror of India is found in some classical Greek histories. So this was the kind of sort of corroboration that the coins actually offered. It was interpreted to offer a corroboration to the classical historical detail of Demetrius being a conqueror of India. So under Demetrius, they left Central Asia, they crossed over the Hindu Kush mountains, and then came into the Indian subcontinent proper, and that was considered as the conquest of India by these Central Asian Greek kings. Similarly, this is an example of Kumaragupta coin that I just mentioned a few moments ago. This is the king who is riding a horse and is shown slaying a rhino. So this is again a very interesting depiction. And this often has been interpreted by some scholars to suggest that this actually celebrates Kumaragupta's conquest of Assam. This is a very interesting thing, because we have, I mean, technically we have no evidence that rhinos were only confined to Assam in 5th century AD. But this is how historians tend to sort of interpret these animal imageries. In 20th century, sort of closer to our times, in 18th and 19th centuries, the colonial interaction with India, particularly under the British, resulted in this strange wonder about India, in particularly in their animal species, and a very interesting reference to that is to be found in these tokens. These are copper tokens. They actually don't have any value, but they were circulating in London in late 18th century, around 1790s, as halfpenny coins, and they were struck in copper, and they many times showed interesting phenomena that were, there are like, here you can see animals, but there are advertising coupons, like, there are mentions of booksellers, there are mentions of coffee houses, there are mentions of pubs, there are mentions of famous people, famous political events. Everything gets depicted on these private copper tokens that were circulating as money in 19th century, 18th century, late 18th century London. And this particular series of tokens celebrates one of the early zoos in London, and this was founded by a guy called Gilbert Pidcock, and it was called a menagerie, as most early zoos were, and this was founded at a place called Exeter Exchange, which is just outside Covent Garden in the Strand area in London. A lot of these animals that were caged and housed in this menagerie came from India. And particularly interesting is the Indian rhino, and of course the Indian elephant. And there is a very curious depiction of a monkey that you see on the lower token here. This is 1801, and this is a lion-tailed macaque that you see on these coins. And if you see carefully, he has actually been called. The name of this animal is the Wandero, and the Wandero is a kind of the anglicized version of the Indian name Vanara. And Wandero or Wanderu were Indian macaques that were actually housed in this early zoo. So this is sort of an interesting connection that colonial, in the colonial period, Indian animals formed through in money. These sort of associations also led to formation of certain stereotypes. And two excellent examples of these stereotypes are these medals. The medal on the left is a medal struck to commemorate the defeat of Tipu Sultan in 1799. This is the fall of Srirangapattan medal that was issued in 1799 or soon after 1799 to commemorate the final defeat of Tipu Sultan. And here you see this absolutely amazing depiction of a lion and a tiger in mortal combat, as it were. And the lion is, of course, the British lion, the imperial British lion, which was a symbol of Britain in heraldic terms right from the Middle Ages. So the Lion of England was associated with the lion was associated with England right from 12th century onwards, and also particularly the English kingship. And here again, Tipu's obsession about the tiger was well known. So the lion and tiger, the tiger symbolizes Tipu here, and the lion symbolizes the British imperial lion. So this is the kind of this is the way in which animal stereotypes get sort of deployed on these objects. Although the tiger started as a stereotypical depiction of Tipu, it gradually and very quickly became a stereotypical depiction of India itself. And what you see on the medal on the left-hand side or the right-hand side is this was celebrated, this was commemorating the end of the Great Indian Revolt in 1857, 1859, or as the British called it, the Indian Mutiny. And here there is a very allegorical, symbolic representation of the goddess of victory standing and facing the rising sun of justice. And she has chained an Indian sipahi, or one of the mutineers, in her hand by chains, and then with her hand, with her foot, she is trampling over a dead tiger, and that is a kind of symbolic suggestion that the Indian pride, has been vanquished. So these animals then subsequently became stereotypical in their depiction. And again, these stereotypical depictions carry on in colonial times. What you see here on the top is a medal that was struck to commemorate the 1911 Darbar that was held by King George V and Queen Mary at Delhi. And on the reverse of the medal, the kind the fact that this was happening in India is depicted by 4 classic Indian animals. There is the peacock at 6 o'clock, the face of an elephant, the head of an elephant at 12 o'clock, the cow at 3 o'clock, and the tiger at 9 o'clock. So very stereotypical depictions of India through these animals. And again, tiger comes up again and again and again as a stereotypical depiction of India. The last British rupee that was struck in India in 1947 has this wonderful depiction of the tiger. Not only the British, but the banknote that you see here is 1 rupee banknote of Goa, which was issued by Portugal, and that also sort of appropriated the lion, the tiger stereotype to show their Indian empire, as it were. Around the same time, animals were being appropriated on coins in a slightly different manner, and this was regarding this was in terms of emblems and symbols. So a lot of Indian princely states, Maharajas, struck coins showing their individual badges or crests or coat of arms. And a lot of these coat of arms had incorporations from the animal world, because a lot of these animals were actually connected with the families of the Maharajas or their dynasties in terms of cultural sort of connections. Like some of them were totemic symbols. So for example, the coin that you see here on top right is a 1 paisa coin of Gwalior, and it shows a cobra. The cobra was the family totemic symbol of the Scindias, who regarded themselves as Nagavanshi or descendants of the cobras. Similarly, on the coins of the Holkars that you see here on top left, you see the bull and the horse. Both these were associated with the Holkars in a sort of dynastic connection. The Holkars were worshippers of Shiva, therefore there is the bull, the animal associated with Shiva, but their patron family deity was Khandoba from Western Maharashtra, who's associated with a horse. So that is what you see here on the Holkar coins. The coin at the bottom is a coin of the state of Rewa, which is, as many of you would know, is very famous for the discovery of white tigers, particularly in the 20th century, 19th century. So the coat of arms of Rewa actually has 2 tigers holding onto a flag, and the motto of the state is written in Sanskrit below, and it reads Mrugendra Prati Dvandva Tama Prayat. So it says basically, don't mess with the Lord of the Beasts. Don't try to fight with the Lord of the Beasts. This is what the motto of the state of Rewa was. A couple of examples of really beautiful animal depictions from medallic art. You know, these are medals. These are not exactly coins, but they are part of the subject of numismatics because they're struck by the same technology as coins are produced by using of dies. So just 2 examples. One magnificent depiction of elephants sort of, you know, having a nice jolly stroll in their environments, and that's a commemorative medal to struck to commemorate the opening of the Calcutta Zoo. On the reverse, there is the Farsi inscriptions Baghe Hayvaniyat, the garden of animals at Calcutta. That's what the Farsi inscriptions on the river says. The copper medal is actually of an agricultural show. Now, this was a tradition that was very popular in Victorian England, to have county shows and agricultural shows where farm animals and produce were sort of displayed in for and then even given prizes for their particular, you know, qualities. So here you see 2 bulls, a horse, and 2 sheep. they're all farm animals, and it's a very beautiful depiction of agricultural show that happened in Calcutta in the 1860s. So this idea then was imported from Britain to many of its colonies, including India, and these agricultural and horticultural shows were a major feature of colonial social calendar. After independence, the depiction of animals on Indian money sort of carries on. And there are some very interesting insights into identity and agendas that one can see. The very first Indian coins after declaring independence in after declaring republic in 1950 were these coins of 2 annas and 1 pice, which actually showed a horse and a bull. And the idea of appropriating historic depictions, from India's ancient past, to give a legitimacy to the new India that was emerging at this time, has been very clearly seen in this. Originally, when in 1949 the designs were being considered, you also see the great bull from Harappa being considered on one of these coins. But of course, this design was not accepted, mainly because the seal that on which the famous bull symbol comes is the Harappa site of Harappa had now gone to Pakistan. So it would have been sort of incongruous in terms of space, that an object and a depiction from a Pakistani, what was a Pakistani object coming on Indian coins. So that was dropped, and instead the bull and the horse that were selected to be shown were from the base of the Indian national emblem, the Ashoka capital. So the lion capital has 4 animals at the base, and 2 of these were chosen to be shown on these very first independent coins of India. Lastly, we should see certain examples of how modern issues of conservation, food, and ecology have been depicted on some of the coins. And not all of these coins are Indian per se, but there are some sort of connected to India. But I found this very interesting that food also, apart from animals, are also part of people's food. It's not only because animals are part of, in other ways, part of nature, that they are celebrated in context, but people actually eat animals as well. And that is also a very significant part of the kind of sustenance and economies that people, particularly from what is now called the global south, or what used to be called as the developing world, the coins of those countries actually do depict these things. And the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in 1960s and 70s launched this wonderful program about increasing food production and providing food security for these emerging countries. In 1960s, a lot of these countries had been just independent, and they were really struggling to achieve food security in that manner. So a program was launched to popularize the message of growing food through the monies, and several issues were made. And then particularly in 1970s, they were struck in special collector standards, and then they were marketed by the FAO for collectors. So there was a particular fashion of collecting world coins in 1970, and they sort of rode on that fashion by creating these coins to spread the message. Currently, these coins constitute the most numerous produced evidence or bodies that actually had a food message. About 3 billion such coins were struck all over the world, popularizing the food related messages, the food security related messages from the FAO. So here you see there is poultry, there is the coin of Somaliland on top right here, which shows goat, sheep, and cows. And of course, the Republic of Maldives, which shows tuna fishing, which is a major source of their national income as well. And lastly, but not least, conservation and ecology. Most of these coins were struck in 1993 and 1994 to celebrate the anniversary of World Wildlife Fund. And you can see that there, each country has chosen to. There is Nepal, which shows the river dolphin. There's Bangladesh that shows an endangered species of a deer, a gazelle, and of course, Republic of Seychelles, which also uses the rupee as its national currency. It's 25 rupees coin of 1994, which shows the endangered butterfly from these islands. So you see that there has been a lot of variation on the theme of how animals are depicted on money. So to wrap it up, and after I finish talking, I will come back into my avatar and take questions that have been moderated by Anand. We have seen that animal imagery is used on money in a number of different ways. Form, function, design, imagery, art, everything is encompassed. They appear as symbols and icons. We saw examples of that. They also are open for interpretation and how they're represented. There is a story of legacy and reclaiming that is going on here, as we can see. And also, there is a particular way that we can study these depictions by historicizing them and putting their interpretations in a kind of historical perspective. So that's what interests historians most. In a practical way, however, animals have been used both as memorialization and also as propaganda, as we have seen in the last slides, particularly with messages regarding food and conservation and ecology. So this is where I would like to end the talk, and thank you all for bearing and listening for for nearly 1 hour. And I hope I will be able to take questions right now. So I'll stop the share and start the video in a minute. Thank you very much again. Hello, I'm back again.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Shailendra. That was absolutely mesmerizing and taken us so much back in time as well as So two quick things. One is that on one of your slides, there were 3 coins. I think you just told us about 2 of them. That was on the bull, where you mentioned about the bull. There was a third coin that you didn't delve into. Just 2 slides before.
Bull and there was bull and chicken.
Yeah. So there, you didn't talk about the third coin. You just spoke about the 2 coins.
Which one was? Sorry. What was that? Where?
Back one more. One more. No, before. Yeah, this one, the lowest one. No.
I said this was.
No, after this.
After or before?
After. Yeah, this third one of.
Did you not? I said something about Holkar, Scindias, and Reva.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned this. Okay, great. Yeah. Right. So somebody had asked about, one of the questions was, what is written on, 1 second.
Kadamba Lions.
So this was a question by Gitanjali. She asked, what is written besides the Kadamba lion?
Besides the Kadamba lion is the name of the Samvatsara, or the cyclic year. So these actually are the years in which these coins were issued.
Right. Would you can take a sip of water if you want, if you must have.
No, all right.
Okay, great. So Sahas Barve made a comment saying, when you're showing about the rhinos, that the rhinos were found all the way up till Peshawar in the around 1800s.
I fully agree. There is a depiction, actually a more legitimate explanation of this, particularly the hunting depictions that are seen on Gupta coins, is that they have a very close connection with a very similar depictions that one sees in Iran in Sasanian dynasty.
Right.
And there is a depiction of a Sasanian king shown killing a rhino as well. So rhinos were everywhere.
Yeah, they were Nepal.
I do not agree. I do not subscribe to the view that it mentions, it sort of indicates any conquest of Assam, because that's stupid. I mean,
it could be Nepal, it could be Burma, so many parts.
Anywhere. It is just to show the king's prowess in taming a really difficult animal to kill.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. It is.
Right. So in continuation, Sahas has asked that other than the Kumar Aditya coin, where were peacocks used in many ancient coins, and he has a continuation question which says that was the chicken or rooster ever used because it was domesticated in Asia?
The chicken and rooster usually appears in association with Skanda or Mahasena or Kartikeya, because it was an animal that was closely associated with him. And in a very funny way, in some depictions, the rooster and peacock are ambiguous. So although we now associate Kartikeya with a peacock, in ancient depictions, it is usually a rooster. And peacocks were also used in, and you find them in even earlier coins. I think the earliest coins that you find a peacock are about 2nd century BC, and some, again, in an interpretative slant, in the kind of derivative context, some people have commented that the incorporation of these peacocks actually represents the Mauryas, because the name Maurya, it's derived out of More or Mayura. So it is a kind of depiction of peacocks. Again, entirely unbelievable. So, so I'm very skeptical of derivative interpretations.
So Amrita has a question. She asks that is there any hierarchy in the symbolism of the animals on the coins with respect to their denomination?
No, I mean, no such direct connection.
That larger coins have more powerful
context in which, particularly in ancient India, the contexts were very different. So I don't think that they were actually being seen as higher or lower animals. Of course, there were animals associated with, particular aspects. So, bull, elephant, horse, lion, these were associated more with kingship than anything else. Peacocks and roosters or whatever were associated more in an iconic sense than kingship. But I don't think there is any particular hierarchy as such. I mean, people chose these depictions depending on, I mean, we really don't know what exactly prompted the depictions, but never mind. So it's quite sure that they are from a very, they are from a cultural pool. So they have a meaning in a wider cultural context, and then they're sort of taken from the pool to be depicted.
So if I can jump in out of line, being the moderator, yes. And because it's in relation with what Amrita has asked, that are all the animals shown, with the exception of frog, were there any non-powerful or non-fertile animals that were depicted on coins? Things which were considered
non-fertile. I mean,
the sense that signs of virility, fish and frogs, they do produce a lot of eggs. But
yes, I mean, they are considered to be, they are mainly associated with fertility, because you can't really, I mean, fish particularly, you can't see them having sex.
Right.
And yet they sort of multiply. Right. So this is the association that they have with fertility.
No, I mean to say things like like benign creatures like maybe butterflies or smaller beetles or bugs, or
they are not on Indian coins, but there are loads of them on Greek coins. So on Greek coins you find bees, locusts, goats, snakes, all sorts of funny things.
Okay.
But bees and locusts are very, very, very common on Greek coins.
Right. There's another question by Sahas where he asks that were gaur or in wild buffaloes depicted in any of the coinages, because wild buffaloes do have a very great clear silhouette. So have you?
No, I don't think the buffalo is. I mean, there is a very rare depiction. I mean, where there is the god Yama shown on coins, and that is the only time when you see a buffalo, because he's shown riding a buffalo. And Yama was also a lord of the direction. So he was a Dikpala. So he's also the lord of south, which is the direction associated with death. So in that particular depiction, he's been shown on riding a buffalo. But that's the only depiction that immediately comes to my mind.
Veena Prasad is asking that on one of your slides you have a coin from Vidisha showing aquatic animals.
Mhm.
This also has a 4-orb symbol. Does that indicate it is a Satvahana coin?
No, that 4-orb symbol is present on many contemporary coins for about 300 years. So of course, it is also it is on Satvana coins, but not necessarily that every coin that has that symbol is a Satvana coin.
Okay. So similar question from Aditi Mahajan. She asks that if a lion is depicted along with the religious symbols, Western Kshatrapa, Nahapana, and Satvahana Junnar type coin, should we consider it as a religious symbol?
Oh, we don't know. I mean, the real answer is it has certain associative symbols with it, and one of those associative symbols is a plow standard. So it's a plow which is sort of enshrined in a railing. So that is the depiction, that is the symbol associated with Balarama. But how exactly the lion is associated with any of this, we don't know. Most likely, it is a symbol associated with kingship, as usual.
Okay, I'll take a question on Facebook Live. There is Avik Banerjee who's asked a question. I'll take that and then I'll come to the next one. Avik is asking, do you feel the use of animal depictions in coins have reduced over time in India and it has moved more towards depicting monuments and technology? Just wondering what could be the reason for it.
Yes, no. I mean, there have been episodes. It's not entirely, animals have not entirely gone. I mean, one of the reasons is that over the last 70 or 80 or years, the use of coins has decreased quite a lot, and people, because of inflation or whatever, there is not much depiction on coins per se, but more on banknotes. And you had banknotes. I mean, you had a 2 rupee note with a tiger on it, very famous. 1970s and 80s, those who have grown up in 1970s and 80s would remember that very well. A 2 rupee note with tiger. There was also there was a panel of peacocks on the 10 rupee note. So animals have been around. It's not that they are completely gone.
No, in the recent times, he's saying.
Yeah. Designs don't have animals because they're focusing entirely on monuments. So
Ramani is asking, but for the one butterfly from Seychelles, we don't see any insects on the coins. Any specific ideas as to why no insects are featured, and especially from India?
I don't know why, especially from India, but there are loads of insects featured. I mean, there are this whole range of conservational propaganda coins shows a massive range of animals and birds and insects and everything. So they're not from India for any reason. I think maybe because we don't particularly think that insects are something that need to be put on coins or money. But there are lots of other countries which do it very regularly, and there are countries for which for example, there are Pacific islands which do not have any built heritage.
Okay.
They show loads of animals. I mean, animals has been one of the predominant theme of coins of like Fiji or these Pacific countries, or even Singapore had a whole animal and plant series on coins. Sri Lanka has had quite a lot of animals on their banknotes. So and some of them do have butterflies and stuff like that. Yeah.
We have Gitanjali who's asked, I would like to know more about Kuninda or Kharoshti coin, where it's, I think, deer with woman or goddess and reverse Brahmi script.
Yeah, this was the coin that was shown on the what's called the poster, but it did not feature in the presentation itself. Yes, I mean, there is no Kharoshti coin. Kharoshti is the name of a script. Kuninda is the name of the tribe or the group of people that issued that coin. And yes, there is a deer and a goddess which holds a lotus, which is probably some sort of Lakshmi that is evident on these coins. The deer also appears on coins of other sort of peoples from the region. I hate to use the word tribes because it gives a completely different meaning.
Context,
but traditionally, these coins are called tribal coins for some reason. But I would say they are of what the correct term that identifies them is the Sanskrit term gana. So they are Gana coins, and they are coins of these groups of people who formed either republics or monarchies in northern India in early sort of first century, second century AD. And Kunindas was one of them, and they showed, but there were Yaudheyas who were a neighboring kingdom, neighboring state to the Kunindas. They also showed deers on. So.
Okay. So, Shailendra, there are a lot of questions and you need
Okay.
to conserve your energy a little. Okay. So, Amrita has asked again that are there any coins that depict animals that are now extinct and can help us understand their distribution in the past or their existence in those times? Do we know of any?
The only animal that is I can readily think of again is aurochs. And aurochs is extinct. Aurochs.
Oryx.
Aurochs. Aurochs was a kind of bull.
Okay.
Aurochs.
Okay.
And this was a bull that was mainly in the Iberian Peninsula, and it was made extinct by hunting. And you find aurochs on Roman coins, nothing in India. But on Indian coins, I don't think there is anything which is extinct which is seen. There are strange, like mixed animals. There is a mixture of. I mean, that is something that I did not talk about at all. There are what in technical terms are called chimeras or mixed animals. So there is the makara, which is the mixture of fish and elephant, and there is the capricorn on Jahangir's coin, which is a goat and a fish. So there are these kind of mixed depictions that sometimes come across.
So there have been a lot of fantastic talk and interesting and stuff like that. And Sahas has said that he was struck by the Zeus elephant and rhino hunt coin.
Oh yeah.
That's it. So Sarmishta Oja is asking that you have shown a coin depicting elephants. Its relation with the Alipur Zoo. What was the metal used in that coin and how was it formed?
Well, it's a metal, not a coin. And it was zoo at Calcutta, which is I'm not sure whether it's the same as Alipur Zoo or not. But this is a 19th century commemorative medal that was struck to commemorate the opening of that particular zoo, and it was silver. So.
Right. And what was the metal used in most coins in India in the past?
Oh, all sorts of metals: gold, silver, copper, bronze, lead, tin, zinc. Mixed with arsenic, not mixed with arsenic, all sorts of different metals.
Okay, so
I showed are basically gold, silver, and copper. So most of them.
Vedika from Goa is asking, Ganda Bherunda is a mythical creature. What is the origin and significance?
The origin is of a double-headed eagle of Ganda Bherunda. It's mythical origins, and it comes from Central Asia, all the way from. I mean, it's been there in Babylonian cultures and ancient Iran and all sorts of other places. In Indian tradition, it gets absorbed into the Vaishnavite thing, and he is known to be associated with one of the secondary avatars of Vishnu.
So Sahas has asked one more question, but before that, I have a question for you. Since your training was in pharmacy or science, and then you moved into history, how many languages did you need to, or do you know now, and how has it been? How has your scientific understanding or training been helpful, or was it a problem? This is more so because there are some students in the audience, and parents tend to, and a lot of parents in the audience also, and they tend to, channelize and really herd children into a certain field, saying, "Oh, leave that." So how has your academic training in science and then moving to history and numismatics?
I mean,
and languages. What are the languages you know? How does it help?
I mean, I learned most of the languages by my own under my own steam, as it were.
Okay. What are the languages?
Barring, I mean, I would say, in all honesty, I know more scripts than languages, because I know how to read many scripts, but that is again, learning scripts is not that difficult, if I'm honest, and learning languages is a completely different ballgame. But you can sort of suss out languages later on. But learning scripts is something that is quite essential for reading coins, because they come in all sorts of, there's Brahmi, Kharosthi, Greek, Bengali, Farsi, Arabic, you name it. So there are lots of these, Kannada. So I've sort of learned these through my own enthusiasm for the subject.
Formally, how many languages? Sanskrit?
I don't know. I can't count.
Right.
So, but I think if I now I'm at at an age where I can retrospect quite happily. So so in retrospect, I think if at all the science learning through the scientific stream or discipline, if at all if it has added anything into understanding this, is the ability to a certain extent of thinking rationally. I mean, what happened to you?
Sorry, there's someone. Excuse me, there's somebody.
There's something happening in the country at the moment. The farmers are protesting.
Anand, I don't see that here. I don't know where is it coming from.
Who is there's somebody who's got unmuted.
No, it is not. It is not. I cannot see that person in my screen.
I don't know what this is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We can.
Yeah. How is this?
Never mind.
Okay.
Do you want to conclude in that respect?
Yeah. No, there were two other questions. I'll quickly. Viti, I think this is Mahesh's.
Oh yes, that might be happening.
Can you?
What is this?
No, we are using the network of Youthful India.
Okay.
So
I guess we
I
better
think
call. You can send me the questions online. So
okay, they're short ones. Quickly. One was that why were so many coins off-centered or did not have a proper boundary? Was it rudimentary technology or they were just worn?
I can see the questions here. That's all right. I think that is rudimentary technology, and they were struck by hand.
Okay.
Obviously, so that is so that's why they are sort of off.
Pashmin's question about plants. I think you can do a whole talk on plants. I think at a later stage, some point. And Gitanjali's last question. Why do you choose gold, silver? Why did they choose gold, silver, copper?
The importance of the coins depends on the metal. It is of course the value of the coin depends on the metal. So you are in the period where the value of the coin is obviously done depending on what metal is made of. So obviously those coins, the metals which were readily available, readily divisible and valued as well, were used for making monetary exchange media.
So thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah, I think we have cross connections happening here.
No problems. Yeah.
But I think it was a very fascinating talk, and so we if you can share your email address here, then
yeah. I mean, you have it. You can share it.
I have it. I'll share it with everybody. Yeah. So
okay. Well.
Thank you once again, everyone, and thank you, Shailendra.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Yeah.
It was a
Cheers.
fantastic talk.
Okay. Yeah. Bye bye.
See you on the 11th of December again.
All right. Bye.